80% of runners in a year are getting injured, which is, I think, something that a lot of people don't understand. 70% of those injuries are due to completely preventable issues.
Did you know that between 65 to 80% of runners will get hurt this year? I had no idea. So as a rule of thumb, you should never increase your mileage each week by more than 10%. So we gave you one broad recommendation to help stay injury-free. But when it comes to the future of training and running safety, how do we get to a personalized future? There are thousands of permutations of advice that you could follow, but which ones are right for you? How do we find the right advice for us at the right time? In today's episode, we talk with Adam Stepanovic, the founder of PWR Labs. That's PWR Labs. Adam's company is using data to minimize injuries and help individual athletes and teams prepare, remain well, and build resiliency when they need it the most. If you're looking to up your cardio game, then look no further as Adam and I explore training, running, data, and so much more in today's episode of Hidden in Plain Sight. Enjoy.
This season of Hidden in Plain Sight is brought to you exclusively by our friends at Splunk, the Data to Everything platform. Splunk helps organizations worldwide turn data into doing. It's time for data to be more than a record of what happened. It's time to make things happen. Learn more at Splunk.com or by clicking the link in our show notes.
Adam, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Chad. I'm so grateful to be on, and it's pretty cool to have heard your first season and whatnot, and to actually be invited. I'm so thankful.
Honor is mine, and it's a very timely conversation because fitness and getting over the quarantine and post-quarantine slump is a major, major thing on people's minds, right? Whether it's physical fatigue or mental fatigue, we're all kind of feeling it right about now. So this is the perfect time for this conversation. So let's jump into it. When people are thinking about running and keeping fit, you are one of the subject matter experts on this. So how'd you get started in this field, and what really led you here?
Yeah, it's kind of funny to think about subject matter expertise and being an expert like that, because I really am just a runner. I love it. And so expertise, if you want to call it that, came from just the pure place that everybody gets it from in running and doing any activity, the what do they say, the 10,000 hours or whatever.
Sure.
And so, I grew up in Western Colorado in the mountains, and what comes to mind is this famous running race that went through my hometown of Ouray, Colorado, called the Hard Rock 100. And my dad was an aid station person working at this thing, and just seeing these people run by, and for 100 miles in the mountains, that can give you the bug. And so starting running around with them and with that, and then more passionately after college and whatnot, and really seeing the freedom it gives you. It was building on those layers that sort of put me into how to study this using data and what aspects that I could be explore professionally in it. But I would say the quote unquote expertise would come from just being really passionate about that from the get-go in my life.
Yeah, and I think that expanding the view on this, it's not just running, it's really cardiovascular fitness that you are quantitating or, quantitizing, whatever the right word is there. And you're bringing that data in a way to people and making it useful, combining it with larger data sets and industry best practices. Could you tell us a little bit about what PWR Lab does and how your workflow looks?
So PWR Lab, we take the data that's all around us, and it's wild. Every GPS watch or digital device is taking in 40, 50 measurements or so a second across a run. That's hundreds of thousands of data points. It's crazy that in all other aspects of life, we have data that is helping us through something. We have cars are basically driven through data. Even if your hand's on the steering wheel and foot on the gas pedal, it's all computerized and whatnot, and it's helping you drive that car. And And so we saw all these different aspects in engineering and technology that is using data for you. And we found that the data in athletics and in sports medicine in general, and then all the way down to running, was not using that data in a way that would give you your best advantage. Instead, it was going to really cool things like social media and Strava and stuff. Like, we all use those; they're great. But the real deep advantages of it were not being found and not being realized. And it just perplexed me as a person, data scientist background and whatnot, that wouldn't happen. And so we started looking at all of this that comes off of a watch, and found that you can actually use it as like your radar beacon. You wouldn't want to go landing in an airplane on an aircraft carrier in a fog storm at night without data. And why are we out constantly running and being active with nothing in front of us to tell us when problems are coming up? And so that's what we do, is we have figured out how to take your data and give it back to you in a way that you can avoid hitting the rock in the middle of the road, or the thing that is going to take you down. Instead, you can use that and position yourself to know, this issue is coming, so how am I going to react to it? So that's what we do.
That's fascinating. And, we're built to run. And although it might not feel like it, sometimes we're at the start of the run or whatever the case is. When you are evangelizing the sport, how do you go about that, right? Because it's a topic where a lot of people who know they need to get into better cardiovascular fitness, they want to, but there's hesitancy, they're a little bit nervous. How do you go about creating a safe entry point for folks that want to run more?
Absolutely. I mean, right now, talking to you right here, is we're in the middle of the COVID pandemic lockdowns and whatnot, and there has been a surge in people going out. And they used to be at a CrossFit gym, they used to be at yoga studios, and now they're suddenly looking to running. And first of all, that is my my natural evangelist point, is that, welcome. Welcome. This was the freedom that is available to you by literally walking out your front door and getting going. That is amazing about this sport in particular, running. So it's available, and that is awesome. And now that it's available, it's pretty easy to go nuts. And that is the major risk that people are confronting right now, as they always have been, is that you go out, you go way too hard, way too long, and you start to end up with injuries. And there are full industries of physical therapy and whatnot built around this symptom, fixing the symptoms of these problems. So for those who are just getting into it, or experiencing that kind of a cycle, I highly recommend thinking about your cycle of improvement, and that you don't just go into anything in life as full bore without consequences. So this is no different. So making sure to maintain a gradual increase, and being very mindful of your body and how it feels, and not pushing through that. You have 2.5 times your body weight is going into your legs when you're running. And so that's a huge amount of forces. And if you aren't building your tendons and your ligaments and your body parts along with that, it can be dangerous.
Yeah, I think those precautions are so important, because it's tempting to, go full throttle when you're getting started at something, and not the best idea with running, although we are built for it, right? So let's get into some of the stats that you brought. So you're a data company, among other things, technology company, fitness company. But when we come to the research and the stats, what are some of the most interesting things that you're finding that you think more people need to know about?
Absolutely. So first of all, 80% of runners in a year are getting injured, which is, I think, something that a lot of people don't understand. And it's actually higher in the professional ranks. It holds all the way through. And so if we all are getting aware of these COVID numbers and how big rates of a pandemic are. And some of these numbers, it's amazing how they speak to that, where if 80% of anybody gets injured, and massive millions and millions of people doing this sport, that would be considered a massive epidemiologic issue. And this one is just kind of glossed over as part of it. So that would be the number one thing, is like, this is not just a few that are out there getting injured. This is 80% in a year. And the second part is that 70% of those injuries are due to completely preventable issues. So that is where the data hits straight down the middle. Rifle sight to make sure that you get away from those preventable ones. That isn't just that you tripped over a rock and twisted your ankle. Instead, it's a training error in the methodology and what you thought you could do right away with understandably too little information.
So I'm going to take a stab at the most common reason for preventable injury. Is it overtraining, or how are those defined, and what are some of the most common ones?
Yeah, so overtraining, there's a lot to unpack with something like overtraining. So two main factors, of course, are of going too long and too far, too much time too soon, and that's volume. And then also effort. So going out and just hammering as hard as you can, before you've earned that ability to do that. And the way that we like to look at it is that this is like money in the bank. You can't just open your bank account on day one and then just go buy yourself the Ferrari. You're just going to overdraft yourself. But instead, what you do is you start to build your skills at understanding how to manage this bank account and inserting more money into it and getting some wealth build up. Well, it's just the same exact thing with running injuries and general sports medicine injuries. Is you have to slowly build up so that you can take out of that account when you need to. I'm going to go train for a marathon. That's going to be withdrawing some from that account, and so having that not bankrupt you into an injury is really important. And it's just amazing how many, 90% of people who are training for a marathon get injured. 90%. And you think of like Boston Marathon with, what is it, like 30,000 people now? And then these other marathons at 40,000 people, 90% of them are getting injured. And they are, predominantly avoidable by understanding what your buildup is to it and layering on fitness in a smart way so that you can withdraw when you need to, and you're going to put in that long run. And now I'm going to, maybe you do end up tweaking something, but if you have that capacity to absorb it, you're not going to end up, working with a physical therapist for the next 6 months.
So it sounds like creating a protocol that's custom for you is a necessity if you're getting into running. Otherwise, you're taking, just look at the data, an unnecessary risk.
Absolutely. Yeah. Chad, have you ever had, you're an athlete, have you dealt with the cycle issues with a negative training cycle or you're on the high, and then all of a sudden you have some issues and you start to dive off? You have experience with that?
Yes. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, exactly. So everybody has, and what we're trying to do is dampen that and get it so that you are not flying out the door with your protocols and just getting the endorphins going, and I'm going to crush mountains with my feet. And then all of a sudden you start to have some tendinitis and some issues, knees. Everybody thinks about knees when you're running. And you start to drop fitness, and you start to not, utilize your body, and you get into this trough. And then it's like once things start to heal up and you get out of the physical therapy and whatnot, it's like, I'm going to go back to crushing mountains. Come on. No, we're better than this. So that's what we're really trying to work with is, okay, if we can get that radar out in front of us and we know that I'm going to go train for that marathon or that 5K or that ultra marathon, that I'm going to know the pathway to get there through my volume and intensity, and every day be able to see that in a clear, easy. We're not talking about scary math in front of you on a screen, but like make it so that it's really approachable, so that some loss aversion there, where you want to stay between these parameters. once somebody said that you want to rest hard. It's like, yes, you go to the track if you're going to do a track run and you work really hard, but then also you rest really hard the next day. And I think that's just a great way of looking at it.
I love that concept. Yeah, resting hard is going to be my new training philosophy there. I got some issues right now, mild thing in my left leg, left shoulder, and it's the first time I've ever been injured for a period of time. So getting back out there is something that is at the top of my mind. For folks that are getting back out there after an injury or anything like that, any other tips that you have for them, or any other ways to make sure that you're getting the fundamentals right, and make sure that you're not going to do something, or that you've already been engaging in something that's just going to lead to another injury?
Yeah, it is really managing that expectations and that trajectory. So if you're just coming back in, it is easy to look at your goal and say, all right, I'm gonna nail that goal, and here's my path. And tomorrow I'm going out for this track workout, and then I'm gonna start lifting weights. And it's sort of the thing with the New Year's resolutions, where you then start to slip, family things come in, life gets in the way, and you start to miss some workouts, and then you just keep on going up that steep climb, and then you wonder, like, why am I starting to miss it? Because miss your aiming at the goal. And so what I definitely recommend is to use the power of data and use the stuff you're already tracking. Remember that 85% of people are wearing a GPS watch, and collecting all this data. Use that as a way to show you that consistency matters. So try to get out and even if it's just to a mile or something, to just keep that consistency pipeline going. That is a huge way of keeping uninjured, is not swinging it back and forth. The second part is to just think about, this week I am going to do, a certain amount of mileage, 10 miles or something. And then the next week I'm going to do 11 or 12. And so on and so forth, instead of just saying, all right, it's 10, 20, 15, 20, 30. Really think about a gradual increase, because believe it or not, while it seems like big gains are going to get me there, it's actually the layering on of fitness over time that is actually going to get you there. And it requires that gradual, your body's got to adapt, and you're going to be better off. And I realize it's, of course, we have time to do that. It actually is the same amount of time because of that injury cycle. So you're going, you could either do it's the easy way or the hard way. If you want, you can go into an injury cycle. Well, then you're going to have to take some time off before your marathon. 90% of people do. And you end up at your fitness on the marathon day. Or you could have just gone gradual the whole way there and maintained your fitness and layered on that. And you'd accidentally PR that marathon,
Right. And Adam, when we get back to the data about training or some of the most interesting things you've uncovered in your work, what other things are you looking at?
We are looking at your ground contact time as being one of the major pieces. When you're running, you're leaping off the ground. Every step is a leap, and so we're trying to get that down to around 200 milliseconds. And so trying to present that in a way that people can grasp, so that they're not just like trying to stare at their wristwatch and keep their contact time down. That's a major one. If you have muscular stiffness and you're able to be a shock absorber off the ground, then you're going to have just a real quick pop off the ground. And that's way more efficient and way safer for your body. So absorbing the earth and using all of your muscles and ligaments and tendons to like drive you is just going a cause for a problem. So we look at that. Similarly, we look at leg turnover and cadence, as well as some body mechanics and posture and whatnot. But those are all the outcome of just having a great core and working on the fundamentals of just being a solid human and not slouching. We talk about when you're at your computer all day, we're all guilty of that, just kind of being slouched over at the desk, and all of those contribute to kind of falling apart, and we're able to see that in the data, which is pretty interesting. So we're able to see when people then improve their ancillary pieces, going to yoga, doing weightlifting and whatnot, they actually improve not only their running performance, but their longevity in the sport and whatnot, because they're just, we're seeing the data come back of good stiff bodies just being able to bound off the ground.
I love that. And you mentioned yoga. Are there any other best practices, classes, or movements you see, whether it's dance or acro yoga or anything like that, that seem to be leading to better outcomes for cardiovascular training?
Basically anything and everything. That's why we want to talk about this is connected sports medicine, where it's not just running. Is some of the best athletes you find out are were the captain of the tennis team, the runner that was the captain of the tennis team back in high school, or
Sure.
and that's the key, is to just keep it varied. So everything you just mentioned, I don't think I've ever heard of acro yoga, but I'll look it up because maybe that's the next thing for me. But
Sure.
but seriously, the best is to just keep it varied. Like soccer players who are also doing other movements, cycling and things like that, are working out other parts of their body, and to keep your body guessing is the best way.
Sure. And so as a company, are there any other insights from data that are emerging now or that you're seeing that you think more people need to know about?
Absolutely. So at PWR Lab, we have the benefit of being out with the most innovative of companies. We do some work with Brooks Sports, Brooks Shoes. They're really admirable in how they look at the human body and to work with your natural stride. And so looking at different compounds and different things that work for you, instead of you being put into rails of forcing you into something else is really nice. Technology and just the miniaturization of things like gyroscopes that are going into heart rate monitors and things that are in the Apple Watch and whatnot are the newest Apple Watch are all great. The challenge that we're going to have coming up is figuring out how to make that useful for us cognitively. And my background is in behavioral economics. And that's a really important piece, is not just slamming people with numbers, with data, with piles of data, but instead to stitch that together in a message that is easily understood. So you can have the most crazy heart rate or heart measuring system on your wrist, but if you don't know what it's saying and you're just getting a raw value, it's not really going to help you. So getting the connection point with people and working with them to understand how they can see something and understand how to make it actionable is going to be the most important, no matter what new crazy gear comes out.
When it comes to principles from behavioral economics to get started exercising, continue exercising, what is some of the most compelling research that you've seen?
From the get-go, I've seen sports medicine stay pretty arcane, and that was a major frustration. Is that this was an art, and you had to go to school for a long time to learn these principles, and so you have to go to these experts, and they really are experts in these areas. But being able to leverage data requires a completely different set that is, for in behavioral economics, we look at data as the signal and the noise, trying to find that signal and then bring it in a beautiful presentation so that you can act on it. Well, that Kahneman and these people that are writing about these ways to work with human behavior, they have not permeated very deep into sports medicine. So, and that's what we're trying to do is to get that to work for us. And so unfortunately, it is not so prominent right now, but we're working on it. An example would be trying to make a dial that looks, at green, yellow, red, and trying to present to people when they're in red and why they're in red, so that they feel loss aversion, parts of behavioral psychology that way, that then they are going to adapt their negative behavior and go into a more green pastures and green dial. So, and as you lead people, they adapt their feeling and they adapt their body awareness, and so it becomes just more natural to them. So using the behavioral psychology and economics of that.
Sure. So it sounds like is Kahneman, a motivation or one of he's obviously like a leading mind in the field. When it comes to inspirations like that, are there any other thinkers that you're following or taking notes from?
Kahneman is, he's always been one of my absolute favorites just because of the simplicity. Somebody where like Edward Tufte and being able to present information is a really important one. It's really interesting in running in particular. There's this division and so it's not necessarily one person, but there's a trail running and road running and track and field are at a bit of a fork and they're moving away from each other. And it's completely flipped the way that you'd probably think. The trail runners and whatnot are more, and ultramarathon runners are accepting of more data and that empowering of being able to use this information to help you. Just the while the track runners and the road runners and whatnot are staying more entrenched in old philosophies and ways and are rejecting the use of a lot of this stuff. So it's really interesting. You'd think that trail runners are out there, the hippies in the forest would be just wanting to be running barefoot. Well, it's actually flipped. So a lot of the leaders that are looking at these things are coming from the ultra running and trail running world, which is super interesting.
That is. And when it comes to data sets that you want to get access to or that you think are going to be important for the future of the sport, are there any things that you're really looking to quantify or that hoping that people start capturing?
Yeah, the gyroscopes are pretty awesome right now, and they are on the cutting edge where you can miniaturize them into 5 quarters stacked up size, and put them either in clothing or shoes or whatnot. And I think once we have more information coming off of in the different planes of a body movement, then we will be able to. We'll basically be able to map the movement genome just like you've mapped DNA and be able to really understand some of the causes of pieces. And so, at PWR Lab, what we're trying to do is prepare for that kind of granularity by understanding already the massive amounts of data that are out there, so that we're not just then slamming more massive amounts of data on top of it without full understanding of where we're at. So I believe that this miniaturization of devices and what can be acquired is coming. It's faster. And then also on top of that is 5G. When 5G data starts to come in, we're going to have just a fire hose of information. And if we don't prepare now to understand and decipher this information, then we're going to have a huge lag. And usually that's how you come up with just random products and pieces that maybe aren't so helpful. It's just because they're available. and so what we're trying to really focus on is how do we get on the cutting edge of being helpful, so that when these new data pieces come in, that we can already synthesize them and say, that's the key technology that was missing in order for this math to work. And so then we immediately know how to work with it.
Sure. And what other pieces of research or data, I know you have a whole list in front of you, do you think are, something that the industry or that people who are athletes need to know about?
Key pieces of research are a lot of stuff on ground reaction forces. There's a lot of pieces coming from the Mayo Clinic and pieces in Austria that Salzburg on how how your body is going to receive the ground when you land. And so I think those are really important, that as you are moving we're getting better at using heart rate and whatnot, the next frontier is just our plane, our movement through space and time. So I think those are really big. But I wouldn't want to lose track of that we're not fully utilizing the simple stuff yet. And that's one thing I kind of want to always bring it back to is, yes, those are all cutting edge things coming, and that's great. But let's not forget that we're not using, this data that is already available. And that's why we started with running and our company, is because people have been capturing it for 10 plus years and not using any of it. And it's, so the future is now. Let's already start using this basic accelerometer data and start providing a lot of research into how to find the Venn diagram between the really high-end, high-tech lab work and just the outside lab that is running past on the sidewalk right now of somebody with their wristwatch.
When it comes to folks that are looking to get started, that read and hear things about ultra marathons in general, those things are a long way off, and they can be an aspirational goal, but it can be very intimidating to get started at first. So you mentioned just keeping it consistent with a mile, whatever you can eke out. How do you go about kind of coaching people into the sport? Maybe say somebody is starting to get consistent. They want to start hitting some stretch goals. Is it just as simple as like aiming for the 5K? What do you usually say to that?
Aiming for, those goals along the way, like you say, aiming for the 5K. Also, as you get going, hiring a coach is great. The more serious you are, these are professionals who know what the body can take. They're generally biomechanists, or they have a background in sports performance and whatnot, so they really know how to move you. So that's one major piece. The people that are in between and maybe don't have the coach or aren't going to be going for the coach yet, there's just a wealth of information online that is there to guide you. What I would recommend is to look at it as not the absolute, as the if I fall off this wagon, then I'm crashing and burning, but instead to use these training programs with you. It brings to mind somebody that is using our platform, and they said, it was so awesome. I started out, got injured, then got uninjured by using physical therapy and whatnot, and hired a coach. And now, and this is before they came to, and now they're looking at the data, and they're like, wow, my coach is keeping me right down the middle in the green, and showing me just like perfect workout after perfect workout. And I can see before that that I was swinging forwards and backwards, and that awful training cycle. So it's, whether it's a coach or yourself, just being mindful of that pendulum swing is just a critical part.
I love that. Adam, thanks for being generous with your time. Is there any final thought or call to action that you would like to leave our listeners with today? Yeah,
I would say that data is a toughie, because I realize that us data scientists and whatnot, we get a bad rap because of some pretty negative things that come out here and there. And so I'd say that think about using these types of tools for you, and how that using your wristwatch and using a platform that then can absorb that, like PWR Lab, and to boost this research on how to use wearables and basic technology to empower your activities is actually really a way forward, and it is away from the ads targeting and different pieces that we might negatively associate with data. So I feel like this is one area I'm really proud to work in, because it is such a positive use of something that often gets a negative light with just data collection. Talking to physical therapists and talking to different people in those in sports medicine about like, hey, I wear this, this wristwatch, this Garmin or the Cinto or Fitbit. Is there a way that I could use this to help my starting those conversations with the professionals in these fields is actually going to help make people more at ease of using these tools and using this data to help us all. So So that's what I'd recommend is getting to know your own data more and also asking professionals and whatnot to join you in that journey.
Adam, I love it. And everyone listening, let's get back out there, get running in a safe way. See you next time.
I'm Sophia Bush, and you've been listening to Hidden in Plain Sight from Mission.org. This podcast is sponsored by our friends at Splunk, the Data to Everything platform. In today's data-driven world, every company, big or small, new or old, is sitting on terabytes of unused, untapped, and unknown data. Splunk helps turn all that data into action. Using cutting-edge AI and machine learning, Splunk delivers real-time predictive insights that will help you on your mission to change the world. With solutions for IT, security, Internet of Things, and business operations, Splunk empowers people to make faster, better decisions and take action to get things done. It's time for our data to be more than a record of what happened. It's time to make things happen.